Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Prove Me Wrong podcast. I'm your host, Pete Lieb. I'm glad you decided to tune in with me tonight. I have Christina here with me off to the side. Say hi, Christina.
Hi.
Our guest tonight is Karen A. Dahlman, and we are going to talk about something that is very interesting to me. It's something we've talked about a lot. If you've listened to the show in the past, you know what our thoughts are on it. We're going to talk everything Ouija board tonight, and hopefully Karen is going to help me slay some personal demons because, like I said, anybody who has listened to the show already knows that I'm extremely skeptical of the Ouija board and its uses, but the show is about identifying and exploring alternative viewpoints. So it's with an open mind and, open heart that I go into the discussion tonight. And I know I'll gain some fresh perspective. I'm sure of it. Karen is an officer and director of the Talking Board Historical Society, a paranormal researcher, and the author of Spirits of Ouija, 4 Decades of Communication. She has been using the Ouija board since 1973, and her message shares the positive side of the Ouija board as a tool for exploring consciousness, including the afterlife, the higher self, and sentient beings that exist among us within unseen dimensions. Karen has been featured on numerous media programs around the world. She is also a licensed psychotherapist and is also experienced in hypnosis, past life regression, and channeling. She is a talk show host of Creative Visions TV and speaks and teaches at paranormal and spiritual conferences and events around the country and overseas. You can find more on Karen on her website, KarenADahlman.com, and the A is important, KarenADahlman.com. And she also has the full complement of social media. Simply search Karen A. Dahlman. And again, once again, the A is important, so be mindful, please. Welcome, Karen, to the podcast.
Hello, Pete. Thank you so much for having me. It's a joy to be here with you and Christina.
I appreciate that so much. So, as I said in the bio, you've been involved since 1973. Can you take us back to what that first experience was like and what got you started using the Ouija board?
Absolutely. So I have to back up to go when I came into this world as a young child.
Sure.
I can remember back to about the age of 2 and 3. What was interesting, and this is not uncommon, a lot of you guys out there also have what they would call an imaginary playmate. Well, I had one. His name was Stacky, and he was not imaginary. He was right there in front of me. But of course, other people couldn't see him. So I was told either you're crazy or you're making things up or quit playing make-believe. But no, he was very real. So I realized if I wanted to go to school and be like the other kids, I needed to put Dacky away. Not only did I have Dacky, I used to see other kinds of spiritual things. I see lights and auras and all kinds of interesting things that I didn't know. I didn't know others didn't do that. I just knew you didn't talk to these people that everybody else couldn't see. So I put him away and I went to school. And I really was thinking, I'm not going to look back. I'm kind of ashamed and embarrassed. All people think I'm different. You want to fit in when you're a kid.
Right.
What happened was about the year of 1973 in the summer, I was introduced to the Ouija board. And by the way, this board right here behind me, that board right there is a circa 1972. It was given to me in 1973 by Santa Claus.
Oh, nice.
That's the original one, and I still use it to this day. But let me say this. What happened was I had some girlfriends down the street who said, let's come to our house, let's play a game. We'd always play like Candyland, pick up sticks, Operation, whatever. And they pull out the Ouija board. And I thought, what do you do with that? There's no dice, there's no game pieces. And they said, well, it moves. You talk to dead people. I said, oh, come on. I didn't believe it.
Right.
Didn't believe it at all. They started moving and moving around. I thought, oh, they're pushing it. They said, no, try it, Karen. So I put my hands on the planchette. I was not pushing. I swore I was not going to push the thing. I was going to hold it back if I could. It started moving. And I thought, oh, one of the girls here is moving it. And they swore they weren't. And they said, Karen, we're going to show you something. Somebody who we speak with often. I said, okay. They started talking to what they called a spirit. And it moved around and spelled out stuff to them. And it's like little girl stuff, like, oh, I'm fine. How are you doing? That kind of stuff. And I said, who are you talking to? And they said, well, this is our deceased sister. And I said, you have a dead sister? It turned out my friend's older sister, who was 10 at the time, she had a twin that died shortly after birth. And they claimed they were communicating with that deceased little girl. Now, what got me, you guys, was I thought not just the fact this board would move and maybe communicate, the fact that this little girl was not a baby, it was growing up on the other side. And that to me got me started on my odyssey, and I had to have a Ouija board that year for Christmas. And lo and behold, Santa Claus produced it for me. And that got me started.
Now, in your experience now, I just want, before I get even deeper into any other questions, you triggered me already. What do you think it was why wasn't that child a baby? Why was that child the same age? How did that child who passed as an infant continue to mature, continue to grow, learn to speak? How did that all happen in the afterlife or wherever you were communicating?
Listen, it was a tough thing for me to swallow at that young age of 8.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure what to think about that other than the possibilities there. Now for me, I thought the Ouija board for me, when that was introduced to me, because I put away my spiritual friend from before when I was a child, it kind of gave me hope and clarity beyond the doubt that I was starting to have, that there's possibly something else here to connect with. And I was going to explore that at a young age. Now, I didn't understand how this girl could be growing up. That wasn't provided to me at that time, not until I got a lot older and I started exploring the other dimensions and the afterlife, if you will. Then I started learning about that spirits do have the opportunity to present themselves in any energy and effort they want to be. In fact, let's say you die at the age of 50, you can even project yourself as your 100-year-old self, whether or not you know what that self is like, because you have the ability to project yourself as any age you want to be at that last life form that you were. And so I learned this a lot later. At the time, I didn't understand that. I was just, overall, I was like amazed that there was a tool I could use. And if this tool is sold in stores, that it's obviously acceptable and that it's not, I don't tell people I'm talking to an imaginary playmate. Now I can blame it on the board. I can use the board and talk to my spirit friends.
Okay. Hasbro creates these boards. They produce these boards, 50,000 a day, whatever that may be. They market it as a game and not a serious tool with a set of rules. I have a real hard time believing again that the special edition Stranger Things Ouija board version is somehow allowing you to communicate. Do you think of should these be placed in the hands of inexperienced people? Should minors have this? Should children have something like this that could do such important communication? And is Hasbro being reckless by promoting this as a game?
Well, we have to back up and look at the history of it.
Please.
Yeah, Hasbro has it now, but it's been through several hands in the beginning. So when it first came out, it was 1886 when a company was making a board known as the Witch Board, and it was given to President Grover Cleveland for his wedding gift. And we know that because the letter that they sent went viral to the Boston Globe, and it went around the country, and everybody knew that they were creating such a tool. Mm-hmm. At that time, we were in the spiritualist movement, as you recall, right, Pete?
Yes.
So what was happening was the spiritualist movement was finding new ways to communicate with their deceased that they had experienced. You guys, we just had the Civil War. We had such mass carnage, and people lost, friends and relatives and loved ones and neighbors and people, their family. They were gone, and they were looking for ways to communicate. They were using all types of devices. And this device came along mid-1886, mid-1880s. And when that came along, it really sparked people's interest. This is a quicker way to work. People were already taking their tables, their cutting boards, and putting letters on them and numbers on them. They were already doing this stuff. So in 1890, a group of business people, men and one woman, they came together and decided to ride this wave as a business idea and to make some money. They were in it for profit. So they created what we would know as the Ouija board. It became known as that. The company was called the Charles Kennard Novelty Company. They were the first to market it. When it was marketed and patented, now Pete, this is what you got to understand, it was marketed and patented as a novelty item or game. Right. That's the only way they could get it accepted to be produced. So that's why today, even when it started in that very first beginning of the first company, when every single company that bought it since then, that's what the patent and trademark is. It's a novelty item or a game. So that's why that sticks, and that was the way they were able to sell it. Now, did everybody using it think that? Absolutely not. Do I think that? Absolutely not. This is the tool. This is the device, and it can provide incredible openings to the unseen dimensions. Now, you got to remember, though, I got mine at the age of 8. It said 8 years old and older. So I got it at 8. That's when I started, and I also, Pete, was using it in the 70s when it was in a vacuum. You know, there wasn't like the internet, there wasn't people telling you not to use it. There weren't a whole lot of negativity stuff about it. I could go to church as a Catholic one day and then do the board the next day, or that same day. I got the board and I went to church on Christmas Day and then came home and used my Ouija board. That was not a problem in my family. For those reasons, I never had a fear of it or a disgust of it or any kind of weird feeling about it. It was a very natural tool for me to use because it brought back the reminder of how I came to this world already understanding spirit and seeing spirit. It kind of gave me my lifeline, if you will. For me, that's not the same for everybody, though.
Because you mentioned that some enterprising young men decided to make this into a game and kind of patent the board. Where did the original design for the board come from? Do you know? I mean, you said they were using cutting boards and putting letters on it. Was there an original design of a board? Where did that come from?
Yeah, we have the original prototype, and it was created by Charles Kennard and his team. But we have it's changed. Okay, the reason why I have a bunch of Ouijas behind me is I want to show you how they all kind of look similar, but they're all different eras and made by different companies. That's important to know. The main Ouija looks like this because that's the trademark name, and you've got the letters and numbers, and you've got them in this like arc thing. So that was the original design, but the Ouija was not on there. They did not know what the name of the board should be. So the original prototype looks like this. It has, I got one over there actually. It has a full moon and a half moon. I've got one that's 1892 I'm looking at over here. I should have brought it to you guys. It's on my wall, you guys. So that's a couple years after it was, first came out. But it had a full moon and a crescent moon, had the numbers and letters and nothing across the top. There was no Ouija. And it had stars down at the bottom. That it started, the shape of it and the ideas and the imagery started developing over the years, but they were the ones that started that design, that specific design, and that's the design that really stuck, as well as the way the letters curve. And that makes, to me, the most sense on boards, too, because if you're using it by yourself and you have your hands on the planchette, it's easier to go that kind of movement than to try to, go in circles, and some people do better on that. But so they're the ones that created this design, and this design is the design that stuck for those reasons. And they were the ones, that company, it became other names. It became the Ouija Novelty Company, and then it was sold to William Fold, and then it went to Parker Bros, and then Hasbro bought it from them. And many other companies get the rights, they buy the rights to go ahead and license it themselves. And the small one back in the far corner, that's actually by Winning Moves. That's more modern day. Where this big one over here, that one is a William Fold board from the 1950s. So you can see how there's similarities, but they're made by different companies. But now you're right. Hasbro owns that patent and trademark.
So for a professional like you, what are the rules of the Ouija board? My daughter has mentioned this to me in the past, and I've told her my feelings. She says, "Well, you're not following the rules." What are the rules? I'm assuming there are rules, to be used in a positive way. And are there dangers of using the board if you don't follow the rules? And again, I have talked to, I don't know, anecdotally, 30, 40, 50 people in my life. I have never met anybody who has not had a negative experience with the board, many of whom never touched it again because of that. And so, and again, and I know my wife here, she says she has no problem with it, but for me, it scares the heck out of me, right?
Because I was raised.
Very similar.
Yes.
Okay.
I was raised by my yaya, which is grandmother in Greek, and she had no problem. She started using hers, which was actually handmade out of wood, but she used hers to make sure that her brothers were safe during the war, World War I.
Right.
She wanted to make, and that's how she started using it. Yeah, so it wasn't unusual to see that. So I never had a fear of it. Although when I did get older and play with teenagers and, at parties and things, they would always try to bring bad energy to it just because they've seen it in movies or whatever. But that's not the way I was raised using it.
Yeah, and that's my question is you get kids involved and then kids start using it in a way that's maybe a little more reckless or not as respectful to the process. And so that was kind of my question is, are there rules or are there ways that you should be using the board to get a better outcome in terms of a positive experience?
Well, when the board first came out in the market, basically after a couple of years, on the back of the board, they put the sticker on there, and it basically gave you directions. There was no rules. There never were any board rules to start. There were just directions or suggestions of use. And they would give directions such as, wipe off your board with a soft cloth. One person asked the question so you don't confuse the energies.
Mm-hmm.
They never said it's spirits. They say you'll be met with amazement at spending hours with this tool, or spending hours at this device. They say maybe a male, female use it, man, woman, preferably. Things like that. They would say those were just directions, suggestions. They were not rules. Now, what happened was they started becoming rules. You'll see this on the internet. They started becoming board rules, and what we call them over at the Talking Board Historical Society are Ouijasticians. Gene Orlando coined that word. He owns the museum of talkingboards.com, the best website out there for anything about talking boards or Ouija boards. So he coined the word Ouijasticians, and basically this is what people do. When you have something mysterious, you can't make sense of it, and there's no really science behind it, we start creating our own mythology or lore or stories that we want to tell. So a lot of people started creating these rules. Do I believe in rules? Absolutely not. Do I believe in a way to engage? Absolutely yes. And so what I try to do is teach people, personally for myself, when I work, is I say, how do you want to interact with a person that you know, or you want to get to know? Are you going to be rude? Are you going to be kind? How are you going to act to them? Treat the energies the same way. So I'm going to, give them the time of day. I'm going to set a special space for this work to happen. I'm going to call in the sacredness of that space. I might say a prayer, an incantation. And again, these aren't rules. These are just suggestions that I use because I don't believe in rules at all. But I do believe that you have some kind of decorum about going about this work. And then I'm going to work with the energies and be very gracious and grateful and thankful and be respectful. And one person will ask the questions kind of thing. And, and then I just kind of, when I'm done with the session, I always say, thank you, we'll talk to you later, goodbye, whatever. And then we're done. And then I put that aside, put it away, and then I go about my day. But I make sure I enter a sacred space, work in a very kind environment, respectful environment, and then end it and then leave. So that's what I suggest to people, and that's really what I help people learn to do, is to not think there's all these things that are going to go bad if you don't follow the blessed rules that they have, cursed rules and Ouijasticians, right? Because there really are none to this. I'm just giving you my perspective. Talk to somebody else who uses the board like I do. You'll find that they have their own way of going about it. And that's the beauty of this. We don't really know the best way to do it. I can tell you what has worked for me and how I have great, responses with this tool.
So that's the board that you use personally right there on the side? You're still
This is my first board, my favorite board. But I think now with my partner, we prefer using this board. This board is like almost 1.5 times the size. It's a lot larger, big one back there. Uh-huh. So we use that one because there's more. See here, there's not a lot of space between on the A and the M to the edges. The planchette falls off.
Okay.
So it's easier with the bigger board. The planchette will fall off. So we prefer a bigger board. I have 50 plus boards, and they're not just all Ouija boards. I collect mostly Ouija boards. That's what I'm interested in. But I have a lot of handmade, homemade, and I have a lot of just talking boards or spirit boards. So I have a lot of boards.
So do you use these do you do paranormal investigations, things like that? Do you use the board when you do those type of paranormal exercises?
I sure do. That's my tool. That's what I'm good at doing.
Does the Ouija board have credibility in the paranormal field? Does it, a lot of everybody nowadays is walking around with their different meters and electronic equipment. Do they respect when you come in with the board and say, I'm going to use the board here? I'm just asking questions because, like I said, everybody's now all about the science of it. How do they accept you when you come in with the board?
Yeah, I'm kind of like old school meets new school. Yeah, I'm old school, and I love it because it just works so well for me over the years, and so it's a tool I always use. They're respectful of me, and so therefore, if I bring a board, they're okay with it. But for the most part, most people aren't respectful and don't want the board, and I can understand why. If you're not a seasoned user, you're going to get gibberish, nebulous stuff. It's kind of silly. It's kind of a waste of time. If you haven't used the board and don't have, it all set up where it's working really well for you at this point, I wouldn't use an investigation. It's a waste. You're going to get a lot of just, again, nebulous stuff. Mm-hmm. But also, I think you'll get a lot more better responses with your electronic devices. However, when I bring it in, I get responses because this is what I do. This is what I've been doing for years and years and years. Now, I gotta say, Pete, I don't just speak to the dead. I speak to all kinds of sentient beings or levels of consciousness. So it's not just deceased people. And by the way, they're not dead. They tell me all the time, we're very much alive, Karen. And they want everybody to know that they're very much alive. They're not dead.
So are you saying then that they are in some type of alternative universe or a parallel existence or a parallel plane? What do they mean by they're not dead? Is it just that we live in parallel spaces and we just can't necessarily see each other?
I think that's one way of looking at it too. What they tell me is kind of like there's phase in and phase out. We're like one click of the dial away. It's like we're just one breath away. We're just that much, just a little. That's how close they are to us. I should say that's the difference of seeing something and not. That's how close they are to us. Boom, click it, one dial, and it's like you tune in the radio dial and go to another station you're in between. That's where they are, and it's amazing. And so honestly, that's the place where all of us. That's where we are from. All of us are from this space of spirit, and we can look at it as a parallel universe. We can look at it as, like I said, a phase in, phase out. We can look at it as also a multidimensional self. So even when we're here in physical form, there's an aspect of us that's also still back there in spirit, and that's what I use to be able to communicate with those that are in spirit, that are in the afterlife, the unseen dimension, is my bridge that I know part of me exists there. Mm-hmm. And I use that as the pathway or gateway to reach them.
So Hollywood, right?
Yeah, let's talk Hollywood.
Yeah, let's talk Hollywood, because there are many, many movies that depict the use of the Ouija board, and it's never a happy ending. I have never in my life seen a movie where the Ouija board solved the case in a very positive way. It always starts off with a child doing things they shouldn't do with the board, and then it opens up some portal, mm-hmm. and demons come storming in and they kill everybody. What has that misrepresentation of the board and its uses, how does that, it's got to hurt, right? And it's got to hurt a lot of prejudice coming into somebody like you who uses it in a positive way, who tries to use it for good, quote unquote. How do you feel about the way it's depicted in pretty much every movie I've ever seen?
Well, it's pretty interesting how Hollywood really was intelligent and very smart about this, because they took one of the greatest selling toy. Okay, I'm just call it a toy game only because right. That's how it's marketed, you guys. Just so you know, I don't think it's a toy. But they took the greatest selling toy that was in 1967. As soon as Parker Brothers bought it in 1966 from William Fuld, it outsold Monopoly by selling 1 million more copies than Monopoly that first year in production. Wow. And that was a few years before this one came out. So you got to think about that now. The Exorcist book came out, I think it was 71, but the movie came out in 73.
Right.
I got my board December 25th, 1973. The Exorcist came out December 26th, 1973. Just saying. Yeah. Just saying. So you guys, Hollywood took something that was so popular, and it is in our attics of yesteryear. It was in the days of the early 1900s. It was in everybody's parlor. It was something that was just common. People got, after done having dinner, they get together with the family and pull out the board and have fun with it and have conversations, have dinner parties around a Ouija board. So you've got to understand that was so popular in the psyche of humanity that Hollywood ran with that, and that really that was beneficial to them. It really made it exciting. So am I disappointed? Not really. It's like, no, it's not real, you guys. The Exorcist, the board and all that, get possessed, that's not real. And witch board and all that stuff, we can talk about that, hold that thought, and I'll come back to that one.
Yeah.
But we can talk about some of these movies, but really they just ran with it. Hollywood did a phenomenal job, and they brought people to the theaters and got you scared. And now this is cool, you guys. So in The Exorcist, the movie, mm-hmm. So it was about a minute plus where you see, Reagan playing with the board and she's talking to Captain Howard. Okay.
Yes.
Now, the witch board, you guys, you know this, Pete. The witch board actually put the Ouija board as one of the main characters in the movie. Brilliant by Kevin Kinney. Listen, it was so brilliant because what he did was he said, now the Ouija board is not just a cameo, it's going to actually be a personified energy, and that board had a life of its own. And so what he did, Kevin Kinney, was he started creating all kinds of new Ouija-stitions, folklore. For example, he created the word progressive entrapment, which meant if you use the board too much, it all of a sudden entraps you. You can't get away from it. So it's you guys, I think it's hysterical. I love seeing the Ouija, Origin of Sin. I see all the Ouija movies, even though 13 Ghosts, all the old Ouija stuff I watch because it's humorous to me. It's funny, and I want a good scary story, and I laugh, and I think it's funny, and then I also get scared and spooked. But that's not the truth of Ouija. Since I know what the Ouija really can be for me, that's just I think it's brilliant. Have fun with it.
I would think that Hasbro or Parker Brothers, whomever owned it before that, I mean, I don't know, did it hurt the sales of the Ouija board? I mean, that's to me is, did it, you said it was number one, it was better than Monopoly, and then The Exorcist comes out and it's the portal to hell. And so who wants to buy the portal to hell? I don't want to buy that. So
you would be surprised how many people wanted to buy it. People,
yeah.
That's just actually Hollywood has really helped their sales. Listen, they love it. People that make these movies love it, and Parker Brothers and Hasbro. Well, Hasbro now. Parker Brothers loved it back then, and William Fold, but Hasbro loves it. They have no problem with it at all. It's great. It's great for sales.
No, man. So just you said something when you were talking, and I thought about it again. When we're talking about it's a parlor game. It was in everybody's house. We're talking the 1800s and 1900s. There was no television. There was a piano, there was a banjo, and there was a Ouija game. So, but it's odd to me, right? Because maybe 100 years before that, or maybe 200 years before that, if somebody had caught you trying to talk to spirits, they would have burned you at the stake, right? And
right.
Isn't that that is a huge shift in the society to go from I have an imaginary friend and I'm a witch to I have an imaginary friend and we have a parlor game and we play it at night. How did that transition happen? Do you know how that kind of morphed?
Yeah, well, you got to think. Okay, so mankind, since the beginning of dawn of time for humanity, we've always wanted to understand what happens when we die. Why are we here? What's the purpose of this all? Yeah. So it's that searching of man to understand. Where do we go? Where do we come from? And try to control that in some way, or be ready for it. And so you had the shamans, you had the healers, the brujas, the curanderas, the oracles. You had all these people that did it from beginning of time all the way up to now, and then continued to do it. It was the psychics and mediums, soothsayers. You have all of that. You've always had that. You've had people casting bones and stones and I Ching. There are tarot cards. You guys, there's so many different ways of doing this. Pendulums have been around for many years. So have the tarot. Dowsing rods. People were water witches for years. Back in our forefathers' day, they did water witching all the time. Dowsing for water. So there was always this magical aspect. People trying to find out what's beyond us. And I think man's search and quest for that and his thirst for it, I want more, really helped him develop so many new ways of doing this. And so here we are today. It's no different. We got our electronic devices. We're the age of technology,
right?
And we're using those. And pretty soon there'll be even more devices beyond that. I mean, they've always scried, looking in water or black mirrors or crystal balls. People have scried for years. So this is just a modern day, quasi-modern day, let's say 20th century modern day way to communicate with the unseen dimensions.
Do you feel like it benefits you? You had talked about being sensitive early in the episode. Do you feel that it benefits you to be sensitive, or is this something that anybody that I could use? I don't have any unique sensibilities, so is it something that I can use?
No, you think.
So I think. Does it help you to have those powers?
Well, you asked a really interesting question because there's a wonderful, I would say, paradox that happens. So the more I work with the tool, the more I develop my own inner abilities. And the more I develop my inner abilities, the better I got on the tool. It was this really interesting relationship between the two. So yeah, because you know what? The board does nothing. This is just right here. This is masonite. That one back there is masonite. That one up there is cardboard. I have real wooden ones over there. I have glass ones. I have all different kinds that are made out of different things. The bottom line is not the tool. What is it? It's myself. It's the operative tool. This becomes my gateway, my permission slip, and my vessel, my channel. It's an excuse for me to do what I already know how to do intuitively. And absolutely, yes, every single one of you out there, Pete, you included, we all have these abilities. We just got to tap them. Now, listen, I came in knowing how to do this, and I put it away. The board became my entryway back into that. And as soon as I got a little older, like in college, I really said, I can develop more of myself I don't need this board. And things started shifting for me. I still use the board, but I started using it in new ways. I moved out of the dead zone, I call it, talking just to deceased transition people. They prefer to be called transition people. That I moved from that frame and I went into other dimensions because I realized it wasn't the board. The board is only limited by my own fears, perceptions, or limitations myself. The board, again, is just an excuse to do what I normally can do. It's just, sometimes people just need a little extra something to access those abilities. And for me, although I could do it without the board originally, I was told that was not something you should be doing. So that's why I put it away. However, I've come full circle now, and I'm willing to tap every tool I have, internal and external.
So it was socially acceptable to use the board, but it wasn't socially acceptable just to stand there and communicate on your own without it.
Yeah, go figure.
Right? That's weird. Well, I was going to ask you that because Christina has also said that the board is just a board, and that it has nothing to do with. But I've heard people talk about the planchette moving on its own. I've heard people talk about trying to burn the board and the board not burning. You have a story that you tried to burn the board and the board didn't burn.
Christina!
No, I didn't burn it. I was at a sleepover and a friend's mom lost her mind and grabbed it and threw it into the grill. And, yeah, she lit it on fire, but it didn't burn. Not really, no.
It was probably masonite.
Yeah. So, I mean, have you ever seen anything like that? I mean, have you ever heard those? I know they're anecdotal stories, but have you ever heard any of those or seen any of that on your own?
My planchette has never moved on its own. My board hasn't done anything on its own either. Hasn't flown off the wall or anything like that. However, I will say this. People don't give themselves credit for psychokinesis and abilities to tap into other realms. So I think a lot of times with people, if they can make the planchette work, maybe they are moving it themselves with their own abilities. They discount that. For some reason, people want to go, oh, the board, it does it all. The board connects. No. That does not connect. I connect. You connect. And so that's what I think is happening here. They're using their own abilities. They're doing psychokinesis or telekinesis, you just telepathy, all these different things that you're doing, and people want to dismiss that and instead blame a board. Now, I would love to see a planchette move by itself. My spirit guides I talk to and all the beings I talk to have never moved the planchette, and you would think they would because I'm pretty good at using this. But they always tell me, it's good. We don't need you. You're good working it with us. So, we don't need to do that,
So how do you, I'm going to ask you this question. How do you trust? I mean, you, again, having sensitivities, maybe you can see the spirit guides or see who's talking to you. How do I trust that the person who is talking to me, that Captain Howdy who's talking to me?
Yeah, good question.
How do I trust that is actually Captain Howdy and that isn't something else altogether, who was being my friend and then kind of sucking me in and then saying, hey, I just need you to, open the door here so I can come home. How do you trust that?
Well, if you recall, Captain Howdy became Pazuzu.
Yeah.
The demon, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a good question, fair question. I know people that grew up with that movie ask me that question all the time. So this is the deal. This is what I tell people. I said, when you first start using this tool, you're definitely going to be in what I call the dead zone. Again, this is no disrespect to our transition loved ones because I don't think they're dead at all. They're very much alive. But we call it, for better sakes, a better word to use, the dead zone. Mm-hmm. So I say, everybody who does this tool, the first place you're going to start is with the deceased. Why is that? Because they're closest to us. Again, one little notch. Easier to connect with, the most easiest beings to connect with. So you connect with them initially. And so what you get is like different, just coming in. I used to be like on a what do you call it, a party line, like an old operator switchboard. I got this call coming in. It was like, I had all this, and so what I tell people to do is you really need to develop what I call a bouncer, a gatekeeper, a master or mistress of ceremony on your side. That takes a lot of time. People go, how long does it take? Well, it probably took me 10 to 13 years until I really had somebody I really felt like I trusted. Again, I was only 8 using it, starting out. So about 13 years later, by the time I was in college, I was at a place where I had a bouncer that when I could count on all those years who was consistent with the message. I tell people, if you're going to use the Ouija board, don't believe what you get. Don't believe it until you've been using it for maybe years and years and years. By the way, I didn't come out in the public and talk about what I was getting until I used it for 39 years. And the reason why is because he's like, I was still experimenting and exploring, and I had to get all this stuff together of what I was learning about the animals, communicating with them, or spirit guides, or angels, or extraterrestrials, and all these beings I was talking to. And I wanted that consistency over time. It's hard for me to watch somebody come out and teach about Ouija and talk about it, and they've used it like maybe 5 times or a few months. Because it's like, you know what you're getting. And when I'm not saying that as a warning, like it's negative. I'm just saying you get any kind of discarnate spirit. And so why call it the dead zone? Because you have spirits that died or are angry. They're still attached to this realm. Right. That's a real thing, right, Pete? This is a real thing. People get this when they go to hauntings. So I say, build that bouncer, and I always say, talk to your higher self or speak to a loved one that in spirit that would be willing to help you. I ended up meeting a spirit that was a slave, and her name's Wilma G. I read about her in my book, The Spirits of Ouija. She's in this book. And I talk about her, and I was with her for about 15 years, and we finally said goodbye. It was time for her to move on too. But you'll find as you do this work, you'll start getting a consistent message. If you keep track, I keep copious notes ever since 1986. I have everything I've written down, and now I also audio record them and write them down. And I do that because I want to see the messages consistent. So now where I am with my spirit guides and how I know they're good, they're legit, and I'll share their messages so openly with people because I've been with this one group of spirits since 1994. And I called them the guides, but they were always with me. But now I can actually talk to them now. Before they were with me, I didn't understand them. I was too young. I didn't understand it. It took me a while to work let's call it my mental muscle and my heart muscle to be able to open up to them. And now, how you know, Pete, this is the best way you know. You know when you're in love. You know when somebody's kind to you. You know when an animal loves you unconditionally. You know when you love your child unconditionally. That's how you know. That's how it feels. And so whenever I get on the board, the guides come through and I feel a pouring of energy flowing through me that's unconditional love. And all I want to do is just share it. And then I got to tell you, I'm high for like several hours afterwards because it's such a beautiful feeling. So I'm a little selfish. I love to do the Ouija board because it gives me this, I channel and I feel the energy so powerfully strong. And that's how you know because it feels so good.
And I was actually going to ask that. I mean, you literally took that right out of my mouth, talking about, because you had mentioned channeling and channeling the spirits. So you actually physically feel something when you begin to channel these spirits through, and I believe that 100%. When I was 13 years old, I went through a doorway. I mean, a physical doorway. I was in a room and I felt a presence come in and stand in the doorway. And I walked through the doorway and I felt it.
That's truth. I got the shivers in my body. That's truth. I feel it.
I felt it. I got shivers too just now. You and me are shivering together. I felt it go through my body. I felt like somebody grabbed me on the inside and was trying to pull my stomach out. That it was such a weird feeling. So I wanted to ask you that was when you start to channel, do you feel that? And so then that is my problem. You just encapsulated all my fears right there in that last statement that you just had, because you are talking about, you went 39 years before mentioning how you use it. You just kind of put some guardrails on the fact that you shouldn't trust what you hear, that you shouldn't believe anything you hear for years of using it.
Some people like that. I'll back her. So it could be, some people could be a year or several months because they're already so psychically in tune, or they're doing mediumship work already. But if you're young and starting out, no, it's not going to be common for everybody. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. But the majority of people I would say the majority of people who use it recreationally, they're young. They use it one-off, here and there at a party, and they got the candles going, and they're stiffer than light as a feather, stiff as a board.
I love that game.
Yeah. Right. So does she.
When my friends would tell me, this is the only reason I thought Ouija was bad was that my friends would say, I say, spend the night at my house, and they say, you can spend the night at Karen Dahlman's house, but do not use that Ouija board. Oh. I said, why did you tell your mother? Why would you tell her? I go, we'll play light as a feather. I said, don't worry, we'll play light as a feather, stiff as a board. We'll do something spiritual.
Yeah. So, so that's the problem, is that you get the inexperienced younger people going in. They're provoking the spirits of the board. Yes. They have no respect for what they're doing. They don't even know what they're doing. I read a story from a woman who sent us a story on the podcast who talked about, she was using the board and she was trying to communicate and she didn't feel like she was getting anything from it. And so then she started saying these incantations in a language that she didn't know, just trying to provoke something. And then, of course, she had an incredibly negative experience from it. And that always just gives me pause. And, maybe if I had somebody, again, who's a professional at it, who's like you, who has these sensitivities, who's been doing it for this long, I would feel more comfortable doing it. I would never do it by myself, on my own.
You won't let us even have one in this house.
Well, yeah. Yep.
I know. We tried to buy one. I tried to buy one for my daughter when we were in Savannah, and he wouldn't allow it.
Listen, let me talk about this kid thing. I didn't really answer that. I'm so sorry. I just realized what you said. So thank you for saying that, Christina. What I say, as a therapist myself, and also looking at children, when children have a curiosity to use a Ouija board, typically it's because they've heard either they want to have the adrenaline rush they see on the TV and shows, or they're really curious about what happens when you die. And so the best thing to do for a parent is to sit down, is it really a Ouija board they want, and say, hey, what is it about a Ouija board that interests you? And they might say, well, I want to know where grandma went. What happens to my dog when he dies? Oh, let's talk about that. What happens when people die? Where do they go? That's a good question. And it might be that's all they want to do.
Yeah.
But I say, like, if somebody's responsible, like yourself, Christina and Pete, and you have a child, and I'm not pushing anything. Maybe your daughter shouldn't listen to me.
Well,
listen.
She's almost 18, so. She's
oh God. Well, hell yeah, I couldn't get a Ouija board. But when she was 8, I was 8, and so it was just, you know what? I think my parents knew I was sensible, but they also didn't believe it worked. They didn't believe it at all. Now they do. But they didn't believe that. And so, but I don't know, for some reason I was responsible with it. And then the reason for me was because I had my connection I had before. So if kids want to use it, the best thing to do, they're going to go sneak and use it at somebody's slumber party, because I would do that. And you guys all know you would do that too. And the best thing to do is to have a conversation. And if you have a board, you have it, sit down with them and use it if you're going to use it at all. If at all. Or you say, wait till you're, 15 or whatever age you choose, and say, then, you know what, we'll sit down and do it together. And I bet it's going to be totally not even in their mind. They'll be wanting to date boys and all kinds of girls and do all that stuff instead.
Do you think that it's okay for more than one person? I ask this because Christina says when she does this, it always moved the way that she wanted it to move.
Yeah.
And so there would be multiple people on the board, but she always felt like I
could concentrate really hard and make the planchette go wherever I wanted to, no matter who I was playing with.
Yeah, so
and I think, Christina, that you're sensitive, aren't you? And you're able to tap into these realms. Is that right?
Sort of. I don't know.
Okay.
Pete won't let me have a Ouija board.
But I mean, without even a Ouija board, you have this.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. So a lot of people write to me and say, Karen, I know what it's going to say before it goes to the letter. I said, that's okay. Let it spell, but write down what you're getting too. You're going to find it might be the sentence might come partly through your telepathy and then partly through the board. I go, the board, again, you guys, is just an excuse to unleash what's within yourself. There's nothing that's out there coming to it. It's me unleashing what's in me to be able to connect to these other realms and dimensions by tuning my frequency a little bit. And so I would say that's what you were able to do, Christina, because people write to me all the time. I can also get the words too. When I was working the board for years, I was a very fundamentalist about it. A purist, I'll say. I just wanted to spell. I took my mind specifically away from it. So if you watch me ever use the board, I've got like just one finger on the planchette and I write and I go back, I call it the letters D, P, Q, R, Z, Y. It's like that fast and I write them out. So that's the way, by calling them out, writing big and my finger on there, that's how I was able to kind of separate my mind from it. So I wanted to be a purist again with it. I wanted to give every bit of the spelling and the messages over to this other dimension of the beings I communicate with. Again, it's with people there are people. Some are people. There are a lot of beings that I know that I communicate with. Some haven't even been born. But I purposely did that. But people write to me and say they get that a lot, like you did, Christina. And that's just, hey, you don't need a board. That's what I'm saying. You don't need a board. You don't need one.
All right.
There you go. Well, so yeah, that was my question, because if somebody like me who should you use it by yourself, or is your results going to be tainted by someone else who may just have a more powerful psychic flow than you do, and just they may want it.
Like I
she
can
push
move things into Pete's brain. Like we've tried.
Well, I definitely can pick up things she's thinking. That's for sure. She'll say, "What am I thinking about?" And I catch it.
See, that's what I'm talking about. So that's why you're getting it. That makes you're telepathic. You're getting it before it comes. That's wonderful. I mean, these are gifts you got everybody out there to understand. These are gifts that we all have within. Just find your way to open it up. My way to open it up in the beginning was, after I closed it down, was the board. That's what it was for me. It was my lifeline at that time. Now I can do all this work without a board. I can make the connections, get the conversations, I can the channeling, I can receive the messages without the board. So that's I've come full circle, but it's been it took me 50 years to get here.
So my last question on this, I did want to get to the past life regression as well, but for the board itself. So do people come to you and for contact with loved ones or relatives, or do they come to you for like a fortune teller role? How do you incorporate this as a professional? How do people come to you?
We do sessions. We do open message sessions at my home. Right now, obviously we're not, but we do sometimes periodically. We'll go through times when we have people that have interest and are nearby, and we will host sessions where they come and get to sit and ask questions of the guys, and then they'll speak with them directly and give them answers, or if they have a question about a loved one, it may or may not come through. It depends on the loved one. We also do things on Skype. We've done a lot of private sessions right now. I'm not doing them only because I'm working on a book and I'm getting ready to go do a big show with Gaia TV here soon, and I'm getting ready for that. So I'm not doing it right now, but yes, we do sessions for people. We do, and I say we, it's my partner, my board partner, and I like to work with the partner when I use the board.
Do you do that for protection, or do you do that
for
just because it's fun?
Okay, this is what I say. When I was this book, I told people, because I had a lot of younger people listening to me and doing this, I said, I don't recommend using it by yourself in the beginning, only because it's harder to get to work, not because you're going to be endangered, but because you're going to probably give up or think you're pushing it. When you bring another person into the equation, all of a sudden you can let go, and you go, well, that person might be pushing it. Well, I know I'm not. And then you, after a while, just kind of not sure, and then it starts moving, and then you can let go. And it's so much easier with two people. I used it with two people for 39 years. When I first started coming out and talking about it, that's when I started using it with a partner.
Okay.
I mean, excuse me, by myself. So 39 years with a partner. Why? Because I read what was on the back of the box or the back of the board, and what it said was male, female, partners preferably. And so don't let these rules, I know, because that's why I say don't listen to these rules. That got me stuck for 39 years. Don't use it with one person, another person. But I gotta tell you, the beauty of using it with somebody is you get to be each other's checks and balances. You get to explore the information you get to be each other's sounding board, and you get to, have a conversation, what you just receive. And so if you ever watch my shows on YouTube, and you guys are welcome to join me there, we will bring forth the messages from spirit guides and the spirit ones I call the guides, and also all kinds of beings that come through and talk, and they have messages for humanity. And you can see how Rodney, his name is my board partner, how we work together. We will have conversations to help bring through the information even better. In between, when it stops spelling, after it spells like a paragraph or 2 pages, and it stops, we'll talk. And to me, that is fun, because it's like now we're exploring, we're digging deeper into it, and it's asking us questions. And my spirit guides are like therapists in a way. They really like to help people dig and learn and to enrich their lives in profound ways.
My last question. Ouija board safe for inexperienced children? Is 8 and up the right age, or should it be 12 and up, 15 and up? What is the right age for a child to start using the Ouija board?
I'm okay with 8 and up if there's some kind of parental supervision, or there's somebody that's older that's with them, and you're asking them why they really wanted to use it. I really think it's going to be they want to explore what happens when they die. I mean, kids are told, oh, you just go to sleep and that's how you die. And they're afraid if they go to sleep, they're going to die. They just want to understand. And so start there before you start bringing boards into the home. I was fortunate, and I know people say they had bad things happen, and I'm not going to discount people's experiences, but I can help people, and I do help people all over the world how to have nothing but positive experiences, but there's some things you have to do. We covered some of these things, as you mentioned too, Pete.
Okay. Any other questions, Christina?
No, I feel validated.
You feel validated? Then I want to switch. I want to switch gears just a bit to past life regression.
Absolutely.
Because you are also a licensed psychotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
So you help individuals identify their past identities, their past lives. Do you do that strictly through hypnosis?
Well, this is how it worked for me, and I'm not practicing right now. I'm still licensed and everything. I'm just not practicing right now because I'm doing some other work. But when I do the past life work, this is how it works. It's not saying let's go back to a past life. It's like, I want you to, what issue are you presenting that you're coming to me to help you with? And maybe it's depression or something. Let's just take that as an example. I'll say, let's follow that energy back. I use hypnosis to put them in touch with that feeling, and let's follow it back to where it started. And what I find, I don't tell let's go to past lives. it might take them into the womb, it might take them into a previous life, it might take them into several previous lives, or an in-between life. So we were doing a lot of work like that. I let them go where they need to go. I just help them relax to find the origins of whatever we're working on. And I've also got to tell you guys, you can go into future lives too. It's not so past, present, future. According to quantum science, it's like everything is happening now. I can't grasp that 100% myself.
Yeah,
I really can't.
Yeah.
I just have the theory. I don't know. But what I find when you do this work, you can change who you are in this incarnation by shifting your past. So you can change your past to affect who you are here, and you can help yourself by pulling the future self or that part of you that's really a multidimensional aspect of yourself, maybe in a parallel life. Pull that to you to also help yourself here. So I found that as doing this work, people were going in all different directions without me asking them or telling them or directing them. I followed where they went and just worked with the energy, and that's what happened. That was back in the whole decade of the 90s I was doing this.
Because that's got to be really difficult. And that was always my question with regression through hypnosis, is how do you navigate that? Because the mind is so suggestive at that point. When it's in that state, it's so suggestive. And it would be so easy to plant a seed without even really doing it on purpose. And then they suddenly think that they've lived something else. So they're coming to you initially just because they have psychological issues that they just want help with. It's not about I feel like I've lived before. I'm not having deja vu, or I feel like I've met this person before. It's just I have depression or I have anxiety, and I'm coming to you for help.
Yeah. And so I'm also a registered board certified art therapist, and that's what I would use was art and the talking. But what I found was the hypnosis really helped out too, because they could go into the mind and then go into these what we want to call memories or what. Listen, this is the deal. It didn't matter if I believed it was real or accurate or true or not. What mattered was they're getting better.
Yeah.
So that was the thing. And I told them, I said, do you really think I was Betsy Ross? That's an example. It wasn't Betsy Ross, but you really think I was Betsy Ross? And I go, it wasn't for me to say. I said, how do you feel? Are we affecting change? It's not for me to judge if that's real or not. It's the fact that we're seeing a change. I was focused on, as a clinical therapist, to help them get better. And if they happen to explore a past life doing that and they wanted to come back to explore that more, I'm all for that, because it just helps realize there's more power to themselves. They're more empowered than they really think they are. And if they can start realizing there's so much more than just this one incarnation too, there's a multidimensional aspect, like facets on a diamond to every single person, that is like, let's explore, let's grow. I mean, when you start opening up to the possibilities for our own expression, our own space of living, we begin to welcome these gifts that we have. We begin to understand there's so much more that we can experience and see and witness and feel, and all these senses start developing. So I was really open to people, as open as they wanted to be, to helping them be that and get better. People were getting better. People were getting better in a combination of whether it was talk therapy, art therapy, or hypnosis. I was seeing a great improvement on people because they're accessing all these abilities within them. They're accessing where this depression might have started. And let's say they told a fake story that they lived in Cleopatra's year and they were killed, and that's why they're depressed or something like that. It didn't matter. Them telling that story to themselves would help heal them for some reason. I'm the one to say I believe more in the fact when they were going back and they had the emotions and they'd come back and be really upset, and we had to do some work on that, and the feelings they had and why they had a birthmark or something, some weird stuff like that. We're getting recall of names and dates, and those kind of things really made me take a look. And I was like, wow, there's something more than meets the eye here. This is crazy stuff, and it's so cool that we could do this.
Do you personally believe that we are all being reincarnated? Is that or is it, because your point, you'd mentioned earlier that you have talked to souls that had not yet actually been born. Mm-hmm. So do you believe that we are in a constant state of reincarnation, or is it something else? How do you, because it's also hard for me to just it's hard for me to reconcile, because if we're talking about we're always being reincarnated, but then I'm also talking to Grandma on the board, how do those two things agree? Am I talking to Grandma on the board, or did Grandma get reincarnated over here? So,
this is where you get to the multidimensionality of the soul. A soul's not stuck in one body. It can be in many multiple bodies of an aspect of yourself in other dimensions. And so Grandma could be reincarnated, and part of her could still be, like I said, when I first started saying, we all have an aspect of ourself that reaches back into the spirit realm where deceased loved ones go. And so therefore, a piece of Grandma you knew that incarnation you knew could still be communicated with. Regardless, she was reborn as a 2-year-old now living in South Dakota.
No doubt. And so
this is where it gets. This is where it gets so kooky. And I got to tell you, the board's taught me a lot. When I said the board, the spirit beings I communicate with about this, but also doing the hypnosis work. That was such a prominent time in my life of learning about this, because it was there. I was witnessing this with people outside of me, and yet I was also getting the same information from different spirits I would speak to in the other realms.
Do you feel like this is just kind of part of human psychology, that being more ready to believe in past lives, and that because we want to live forever, whether it be we're living forever in heaven based on your religions, or we're being reincarnated, or I'm waiting for science to come and rebuild me. I've said that if science wants to rebuild me, sign me up. Do you kind of feel like some of this or a lot of this past life, because you're saying you're just going in to try to help them feel better, and they're coming out with stories that I'm Betsy Ross or I'm Nefertiti or I'm King Tut, and that makes them feel better. You think maybe it's just part of that psychology that think that, this ride isn't going to stop once my one rotation's over, and it's just black. I'm going to go on, and I have gone on. Do you think that's partly the issue?
I think it could be that as well. I think it could be stories that make them feel better. I think it'd also be a real tapping into the residue of their life from before. And we don't know. That's the thing, we don't know. And so I'm willing to keep doing the research and exploring this. Mm-hmm. The other thing I think too is that what we call past lives or reincarnation, I think it's an obsolete or older term. I still use it. What I think the term we need to look at now is that we're multidimensional beings. I'm going to keep saying that word because it's like we can exist on multiple levels at the same time, as well as being in the spirit realm with our loved ones who are transitioned deceased, as well as being maybe somebody's angel somewhere else, as well as being somebody in a parallel universe. Being Karen somewhere else, but she's called something else, but we have some similarities. Here's a real cool thing I got to tell you.
Okay.
So one of the things I've learned about twins, especially identical twins, and by the way, that gal who was growing up on the other side was an identical twin of Brenda, who was the 10-year-old. So what I've learned about twins is that when people come in to be identical twins, it's actually one soul split twice into two bodies to have unique or triplets or quadruplets, or you go on and on, to have these experiences in the same kind of format, DNA structure, because they want to have two perspectives in this realm of living in this life incarnation. So what I've also been told is when I say told, from the guides that I communicate with, but I've also told that when one of the twins will die before the other one, that twin will feel like the energy sucked back into her, and it'll feel like you talked about the energy, she'll feel that, or he will feel it and they know right away. It's like, oh my God, something's wrong with him. Something's wrong with her. They know if they're not aware that the person's dying, because there's that connection of the same soul. So that's something interesting we've kind of stumbled upon more recently.
Yeah. I mean, I've had other people on the podcast that also mentioned that same thing about multiverses just multiverses and I'm existing here. I'm also existing in infinity other versions of myself. Maybe we are just, like I said, one click away from talking to those people, and we're on a slightly different frequency, and we can't physically see them, but they're right there. Yeah. I absolutely believe in the energy. I know Christina believes in the energy also. You can definitely feel when somebody enters the room. You can feel when somebody leaves the room. You can feel when somebody passes away, right?
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was in the room when my grandmother died, and I just knew. My mom had been there with her all night, and she was crying and upset. She kept telling me, she's like, well, they told me she could go at any time. But I had known. I just woke up out of a dead sleep, and I got my clothes on. Pete's like, where are you going? I was like, I got to get to the nursing home right now. It's time. He was like, what? And I just left, and I got there. And I sat down, and I gave my mom a hug, and I said, how's she doing? She said, well, they gave her something. And then I just jumped up out of my chair because I just knew. And I said, this is it, Mom. Say goodbye. She's leaving right now. And that was it. And nobody else could understand. They're like, what do you mean she's leaving right now? I'm like, she's gone. This is it. She just left the room. Nobody else feels that? And they all just looked at me like I was crazy. But
no.
Yeah. And she did. She had passed. That was the very last breath she took. But yeah, I mean, you can feel it. Wow. That wasn't the first time either. I mean, I had another grandmother pass, and my father had called me to say that she had a stroke and that I should come see her. And I already knew in the car ride over. I I felt her. It was like I looked over in the seat next to me and I said, "Oh God, you're here with me, aren't you?" And I just knew that when I would get there that she wasn't. She had let me know beforehand that she wasn't going to be there.
That's amazing. They really trusted you to share that with you, and you were open enough. They knew you were open enough. That's the reason why.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's sad. It's sad, but it's beautiful if you're aware.
Well, it also helps you get closure that a lot of people never have. Some people never get that. You know, if they had not been there and just got there and she was already gone and they hadn't had that moment in the car. Yeah. Then. Well,
and my sister and brother didn't. And the night my other grandmother passed, my brother didn't tell me until 2 years later. He had said something about feeling. He said the windows were closed. There was no air. You know, he was just laying there, and he said the night Grandma passed, he goes, I felt somebody just stroke my back. And it was funny because the same night that happened, I was almost asleep, but not quite. I was just, kind of very tired from the day and everything, and I was laying on the couch watching TV, and I was almost half asleep, and I felt my hair fall into my face, and then I felt somebody brush it and put it behind my ear, and I just knew it was her. And 2 years later, my brother mentioned that to me, and I was like, that was exactly the same night. And my sister, nothing happens to her. Not that she can remember anything. And she was so upset.
She was mad.
She was mad. She was really mad that these things didn't happen to her. And it just, she was very upset.
I guarantee you your grandmother reached out to her too.
I said the same thing. I said, I guarantee she did. You were just sound asleep.
You gotta be able to be sensitive to it, and you gotta develop it. It's a muscle, you guys. You gotta develop these muscles. That's what it is.
Yeah, well, I've been like this since I was very small.
So you're like me.
Yes, since I was little, I was always the kid that was saying things and showing people things that they really didn't want to see.
See, I think, Christina, you would be really, really good on the Ouija board. Just saying.
I played with it a lot when I was a teenager. Yeah. And even by myself, even though people said, don't do that by yourself. But, I never saw it as evil or bad, or I never had I never personally had a bad experience. I had friends who, at sleepovers, we're talking to the devil. Oh, this is scary. We have to stop.
Yeah, that's what they wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. It was all scare tactics. It's more fun to be afraid, blah, blah, blah. But like I said, my yaya, to me, it wasn't weird. She would do that. I would see her sitting, I'd walk in from school or whatever, and she'd just be doing the Ouija board, sitting there doing, that was just normal. That was her thing. She was communicating. She was checking on family far away. That's why.
By the way, do you still have that board?
No, I don't.
That would be heirloom, seriously, because they used to make.
If we do have it would be in an attic somewhere. I don't know. My dad.
Maybe your father has it.
Yeah, my dad's never mentioned.
I hope you have that.
It would be amazing.
Keep it. Do never get it. Even though people like us would love to have it, don't keep it.
I don't know if Pete let me have it.
Well, listen, there are beautiful pieces of artwork. It's, thinking, this Shakespeare quote, it goes, nothing's neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. So I've got my boards on my wall, I've got them all around me. It's what we think about, what we bring to it. And again, the board has no special power. It's an inanimate object. We hold all the powers ourselves, and people give away their powers too often to boards and want to blame all the stuff, because, I had a board in the attic, that's why this happened in my life. I hear that all the time. Yeah. But no, it happened because something needed to change in your life, or you created it, or it's meant for your life to change and go in this new direction. That's why it happened. Not because the board did it.
Totally believe it's the energy you bring. And I wish I could make him see that. Our daughter, when she was young, she was able, when she was little, she could project her energy.
She traveled the house. She traveled the house at night. You would as a parent, I don't know if you have children, but as a parent, you can feel when your child is in the room. Usually at night, they're in the room because they're not feeling well and they're about to vomit on you. So
those are facts.
Those are facts. So usually I'd be laying there in bed and I could feel her and I'd be like, okay, Lauren, what do you need? And I look over and she's not there. And, and I thought it was just me. And then I would say it to her, and she would agree. That,
we didn't sleep in the same room because he broke his nose and he snored constantly.
Yeah.
And I had to take care of the kids the next day. I needed my rest. So we didn't sleep in the same room. But, I would say it was so weird last night. I rolled over because I thought Lauren was standing there and she wasn't there. And he's like, oh my gosh, me too.
I felt the exact same thing.
A lot. She She could.
For about 3 or 4 years, probably.
Very talented. What age was she doing this?
Oh, 6,
7?
7 years old.
Yeah, that's usually what happens, you guys. So, does she remember doing this? Does she know she was doing this?
She doesn't now, but I asked her when she was little. I asked her. I said, were you dreaming? Do you remember anything? And she would always tell me the same thing, that she had an accent, which was the same one that the guy who used to say crikey. So I assumed the crocodile hunter. So I assumed she meant Australian, and that she was always a boy. Every night that we would feel her.
Wow.
I don't know if she was astral projecting, if she was I have no idea what she was doing.
That sounds
but
like
she
it.
always told us she was a boy. She goes, I was me, but when I look in the mirror, I was a boy. I'm like, okay.
But that was actually going to be my last question for you, because we're running against it. Was children scare the crap out of me when you say, because they say things like that and they do things like that, and to me they're so close to the veil.
Yes.
They are brand new, fresh out of the package souls in some cases. Sometimes they're recycled, but they're so fresh, and so they can see things and remember things. And you hear all these stories about children talking about lives they had lived before, or talking about things that they should have no knowledge of in the past. I mean, have you have experience with that as well? Do you see in your work, have you ever seen children like that?
I have, and not so much my work, but in my family. I can think of some of my nieces and nephews that have said some things to me that are just like, what? How would you know that? And I was that kid too, as a child. I could hear the phone ring before it rang. I was that one too. So I from personal experience. And then when I hear it, I just embrace it. When I hear it, it's like, oh, tell me more. What else do you remember? What do you know? Well, I remember one time one of my nieces, she's my third youngest. She said, now she's like 16. At the time she was like 2, and I had a cat that was dying, and she watched me give the cat subcutaneous fluids, injections to it. She says, what are you doing, Karen? I said, well, I'm giving Hermes medicine. She's like, oh, I'll help you. So she sat there and watched while, pet Hermes while he's getting medicine. And then he died. And I was visiting her house, and he died. I went back home, and he died. And then she came to visit not too long after that, and she goes, and I didn't tell her anything. I didn't say Hermes died. I didn't want to scare this little kid.
Right.
So she comes to my house and saw a picture of Hermes in the hallway, and she goes, there's Hermes. You know where Hermes is? I said, where is he? She goes, he's in heaven, isn't he? I was like, I go, Robin, her mother. I go, did you tell her? She goes, I didn't tell her anything about Hermes. So she knew.
Yeah.
And so things like that. I love those kind of things. I think it's beautiful. I think it's reaffirming that the veil is that thin. And again, when our loved ones transition, it's right here. We just got to open to it. Like you explained, Christina, beautifully, all these passings of your grandmothers and your family members. And I had experiences like that too. We all do. Mm-hmm. And all you guys out there do as well. And you guys will hear us talking our stories. You're going to be going, I got a story too. Because we all have these. We all have these experiences. Sometimes we just dismiss them. And I'm going to ask you not to dismiss them, because that's part of you developing and blossoming and blooming more into who you are supposed to really be, which is a being that has these abilities to connect.
And the worst thing you can do is to tamp out that child who's saying that to you.
Yes.
Because
my parents.
Well, because how many of us were those kids, or how many or maybe all kids are there until an adult tells them no. Until an adult tells them, don't think that way. You don't believe that's not real. That's not real. That's you're making things up. Stop doing it. And then you have to put your imaginary friend away, or you have to put the things that you see and that you remember, you have to tamp those down. You can't talk about it anymore, and then you lose it. It's gone. Who knows what we could do. So thank you so much, Karen, for joining the show today. It's given me a lot to think about. I'll be honest with you. I've got a lot to think about here. That's why I wanted you to come on. I'll be honest, because I have been steadfastly against, for all the reasons that I brought up, steadfastly against the use. I just think in the wrong hands, it can be incredibly dangerous, and I fear the wrong hands. I guess that's my problem.
I fear human living people more than I fear the deceased or other spirits in other dimensions.
No doubt. I agree with you there 100%. I've said that. Speaking of Hollywood, I said I would much rather have somebody break into my house. I'd rather have Jason break in and try to kill me than have The Exorcist and try to inhabit me. I feel like I can fight Jason. I cannot fight Bazazu or whatever the demon's name was. So I definitely fear humans more than the other. But so I know you'd mentioned that you really aren't able to have a whole lot of human interaction right now because of the pandemic that's going on. You are working on a new book, though, you said. Would you like to spend just a moment
to... about this consciousness. We started touching base. We haven't really gotten into it, but the stuff with my ideas of talking to other dimensions and other beings and other dimensions, as well as other realms, as well as, you know, extraterrestrials, etc. I'm doing all this work. So, yeah, I'm writing a book about that, and I'm going to be speaking more and more about that coming up soon.
So are you hoping then... I mean, are you having the same kind of problem? I mean, do you have like conventions that are set up that have been canceled or things like that, speaking engagements that have been canceled? And do you have any idea of when any of those would be rescheduled?
Well, this is what I'm thinking. So Michigan Paracon right now is still supposed to happen. So right now I'm coming along with a few other people from the Talking Board Historical Society. We've got a really cool, we got the world's largest planchette there. We're going to have a really cool museum of new boards you guys didn't see last year when we were there. And these boards will have a story behind them. So it's going to be really exciting. So I'll be there with a few other members. And then I'm supposed to be going to Sage Paracon in Virginia in October. So let's hope those two things happen. I had to cancel a paranormal investigation recently. And so let's just, I'm supposed to be going to Gaia, like I said, in June, and that's supposed to happen still. So, you know, we'll see what happens. So if you guys are at Michigan Paracon, please come out and say hello. If you go to Sage Paracon in October in Virginia, you can find that online as well, and say hello too. Love to meet you.
Awesome. So once again, KarenADahlman.com is the website. The Spirits of Ouija, 4 Decades of Communication is her book. She has a brand new book coming on talking about...
Actually, I actually have 2 other books.
Oh, 2 other books. Go ahead.
I don't tell everybody. So I actually have a few books, you guys.
Sure.
But the big one everybody knows me for is probably this one. So anyway, yeah, and I've got my 4th book. It'll be coming out soon.
And we can get them all on KarenADahlman.com.
That's right. Or also Amazon.
Amazon. You can get everything on Amazon. Amazon.com as well. Absolutely. So again, thank you so much for joining the podcast. If you're ever in Northeast Florida, St. Augustine, let us know. I'll let you direct a Ouija board with me.
I'd love to. And by the way, somebody
write this down.
The rest of them, I don't know, but you for sure.
He said yes.
Yes. We'll be all 3 will do it. It'd be wonderful, you guys. Can you imagine?
I can.
I can't.
He can't.
I can't until you show up, and then all of a sudden I'll have to imagine it.
You'll have to be it and do it. No, we never forced anybody to use the board, but I think you're going to see how wonderfully it works. So you're going to probably want to join in. That's usually what happens with people who watch. But I want to thank you both for having me on the show. It's been a wonderful joy. Thank you so much again for sharing what I have to say with the public. Appreciate it.
Thank you too. We appreciate it. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
So once again, that is Karen Dahlman. Karen Dahlman is a Ouija board expert. She's been doing it again since 1973, since the year of my birth. She has been doing the Ouija board. That's impressive. But then she did say, and I'm going to look over to the side here, Christina, because you are here, even though you're not on camera. Right. So I'm going to keep looking over to the side. And I will say again, she gives me a very calming feeling about it.
I love her.
She gives me a very calming feeling about the possibility of it. One that I've never had before, because all I ever had in the past were negative experiences and negative stories.
But I find it funny that she says a lot of the things I have said to you, but how come I don't make you feel safe? She really reiterates a lot of what I tell you.
She did. I think she has just the street cred of having done it professionally for 40 years. And again, she said very clearly, it took her 39 years to come out, quote unquote, come out of the closet that she was using the Ouija board on her own. Mm-hmm. And then she did give you a set of guidelines in terms of everything I've ever said. You can't trust what it's telling you, at least not initially. You have to build some trust with whatever it is you're talking to on the other side over time. Mm-hmm. It can't be something that you're using as a parlor game, once for every 2 years we just get together and light some candles and act like we're talking to the devil.
You don't act like you're talking to the devil.
Kids get on there and they start making bad decisions. Kids are famous for bad decisions. So they're going to get on there and they're going to make a bad decision, and they're going to touch something they shouldn't touch. So so that's, I think, the reason that I'm okay with, I feel better with her, because she acknowledged that there are...
Well, you're not getting on with children. You were going to get on with our daughter and me.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's not a child anymore.
No, she's not.
And she
You're right.
respects it. And she has me as her mom. She knows. She's also very sensitive, put it that way.
No, yeah, like I said, I wanted to have her on. It went against my better judgment to start because I have been so violently against the prospect.
So how do you honestly feel? Well, I wanted to say something.
Go ahead.
Directly about you specifically. Did she make you feel any better about the fact that you are so, how do I say this about you? I don't even know. I guess I would call it anxiety. You have a lot of anxiety about running out of time and not getting things done. Did she make you feel any better about, see, I think, because this is why I don't feel that, because I do feel sort of like a connection that I know something's going to go on, and I do feel like there was something in the past, and I don't get like anxious like you do about time's running out and this is the end and I'm going to die, and I don't know, did she make you feel any better about that? Because to me, she did. That I thought, wow, if Pete's really listening, it's going to make him feel better.
Well, there were one of the questions that I asked her, and I really wanted her, that's why I was glad that she answered it, was that whole, how do you get an agreement between you are reincarnated, but you are still spirit? You know, because how am I talking to Grandma if Grandma's reincarnated?
And I totally felt that when she said they're different.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that resonated with me a lot. I feel that that's exactly what happens. Like the piece of that person that you know as that person still exists in that energy, but the rest of it moves on to something else.
Maybe it'll make me feel, in a moment of honesty, maybe it would make me feel more comfortable, but I don't think it would kill or it would lessen the drive I have.
Your anxiety.
No, I think it would definitely, I think it might salve some of the anxiety.
Yes, that's what I want.
But I don't think it would change the drive. I really don't.
I don't want anything to change your drive. But I do want something to lessen your anxiety.
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, I am very present about my age and about the time that's passing and about what I have or have not done in my own mind.
To the point where you like get heart palpitations, like you get stressed out. Like,
well, I get stressed out.
My chest is tight.
Yeah, I definitely get stressed occasionally.
That's a little concerning.
when I think I'm not being productive enough and that I need to do something more.
Right.
And I think it's what is the best and the worst part of me all at the same time. I think it is the double-edged sword there.
To me, when you act like that and you get like that, it feels very young to me. And so, like, I think a part of me feels like that your soul is really young, that it hasn't understood the fact that it is going to... I mean, I kind of wanted to say, I didn't know if she picked up anything from you or anything, but I get that feeling from you sometimes that your soul is very young. It doesn't quite understand, and that's why you get so much anxiety about things like that. And with Lauren and her real existence, it's a fight and not. I kind of get that feeling about her too sometimes.
Yeah.
When I know lots of people said to her, "Oh, she's an old soul because she likes this or she likes," I don't get that from her. I feel like she's actually a younger soul. I think if anybody's an older soul, it's Sam.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't. Yeah, like I said, she may. I feel better. I do feel better about the Ouija board in the right hands. Let's put it that way. I'm gonna say it. I'll caveat it that way. I'll hedge it. In the right hands, I feel better about it. The way that 98% of the world uses it, I don't feel any better about it. I still think that those people are inexperienced and ask the wrong questions and don't give it the appropriate amount of respect. And that's all I've ever really said was, you don't know what you're dealing with. You don't respect what you're dealing with. That's always been kind of my point about it. And I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid of not having the respect and not being able to trust what I hear and having to build that rapport. That scares me. If she were to come, and I wasn't kidding, if she ever shows up in St. Augustine, Florida, and says, "Hey, let's have
you'll do it, huh?
A seance or whatever you want to. I don't know what do you call it? Just a reading, just a session. Don't
make it creepy.
Don't make it creepy. If she comes and says that to me, then yeah, I would do it. I would do it with her.
That's exciting.
Because I trust that again that she has been doing it long enough and has the experience to make sure that it's done respectfully, so that I'm not going to reap any negative benefits.
I don't think you would. Anyway.
You don't think I would?
No, I think that it's a lot about energy and the respect you give it, and I mean, I don't know.
What do you all think out there? if you have any questions or concerns, or you have your own stories. That was what Karen had mentioned previously, is that you'll hear our stories and you'll say, you know what, I have exactly that same kind of story, or I have something similar. This happened to me. What are they? We would love to hear them. You can contact us on the Prove Me Wrong Gmail account. It's provemerongcast@gmail.com. Drop us a line. Tell us your experience. Tell us what your thoughts are about the Ouija board. Do you feel comfortable using it? Do you not feel comfortable using it? And why? Did you have a bad experience? Were you not giving it the appropriate respect? That's my assumption. You can also contact us through Facebook or Instagram. You can just look for Prove Me Wrong. That's the name of the show. If you just want to find where else to listen to the podcast, you can find us on Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, any platform that you can find podcasts. You can find the Prove Me Wrong podcast. Like and subscribe to the show, and you'll be notified when a brand new episode is released. We typically release them every week, and you'll be the first one to hear interesting conversations like this. I was really pleased with this conversation. I don't know how you felt about it.
I loved it.
I thought it was really great, honestly. So yeah, before we go, Prove Me Wrong podcast tonight is brought to you by Java Remix. Java Remix is the perfect blend of 100% organic Arabica coffee infused with nano-emulsified CBD. You can start your day off on the right foot with a great tasting cup of coffee with all the demonstrated benefits of CBD. Java Remix offers traditional ground coffee, as well as single-serve K-cups in both regular and decaf. And if you don't happen to like coffee, Java Remix also offered assortment of teas and even beauty products like bath bombs and body scrubs. As an added benefit for our Prove Me Wrong listeners, if you go online right now, that's javaremix.com, and enter the promo code Prove Me Wrong, you'll get an additional 20% discount off of your entire shopping experience. Java Remix also offers free shipping on all orders over $40. You have no reason not to give it a shot. Once again, that's javaremix.com, promo code Prove Me Wrong. The Prove Me Wrong podcast tonight is brought to you by ZendoZones citronella burners from JT Eaton. They're shaped like fearless little bug-repellent tiki gods, so you can let Surf and Stan, Hawaiian Howie, and Luau Lily bring the islands to your backyard with ZendoZones citronella burners. ZendoZones uses natural 3% citronella candles and incense cones. They're perfect for patios, decks, backyards, campsites, poolside, Ouija sessions, and more. You can enjoy the outdoors again. They are available on Amazon.com and at select Ace Hardware stores. So for my co-host Christina here, and for my guest tonight, Karen A. Dahlman, this has been the Prove Me Wrong podcast. We'll talk to you again soon.